Hello and welcome to Beyond the Bio. As the more observant of you may have noticed, I'm not Sophie Milliken, but I am indeed joined by Sophie Milliken because this week we're celebrating a very special anniversary. This is the 100th episode of Beyond the Bio, and to celebrate, I'll be turning the tables on the host and interviewing Sophie. So, this is a bit novel. Welcome to Beyond the Bio, Sophie.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
You can have the opportunity to say what you'd always hoped your guests would say and turn the tables a little bit there. So reflecting back on 100 episodes, congratulations. What's the best, most important, biggest thing that you've learned in those episodes?
Wow. Well, I mean, I think 100 episodes just feels huge, doesn't it? That's a lot of hours of content, and I don't even know whether I thought I'd get to this point when I started, I guess. So what have I learned during this time? Well, I've learned that podcasting is really fun. I have had the chance to speak to some amazing people over the last couple of years. I've learned that podcasting is quite hard work as well, and I'm very fortunate to have a studio and have a team of people that can help me with the podcast. But I think consistency has been really key to the growth of the podcast. And I just think it was just a really good thing to start doing and to continue, because it's something that we talk to clients all the time about, the benefits of hosting and guesting. And got to practice what you preach sometime.
So you mentioned, obviously, that the hosting 100 episodes of the podcast is an incredible achievement, but I'm sure that there have been some challenges along the way. What are some of those challenges and how did you overcome them?
So I guess probably the biggest challenge is coming up with that many episodes, as in the ideas, the guests, the time it takes to prepare and record. And for some of the time, I was doing those 2 episodes a week. So again, those more observant listeners and viewers may have realised that we've dropped the Thursday show. So Monday, main show has always been the case. And we did have the Take Action episodes on a Thursday. And although they were great in that I'm a huge fan of taking action and I want to encourage people to implement some of the learning from the main show, it got to a point where it just felt a bit much having to do that. And I know, obviously, it's then got to be edited by you or Lottie. So I think that has been a bit of a thing around, what's been challenging is to keep up that consistency, really. And I think some months are great where we've batched a load of content and all the people I listen to always talk about doing that and do it so well. But sometimes that's easier said than done because there's other stuff going on and you've got to think about the availability of guests. And, I'm quite picky about who we have on the show. So we need to maintain those standards as well. And
talking about some of your wonderful guests that you've had on the show, are there any episodes that maybe pleasantly surprised you and went in ways that you didn't expect them to go in? Maybe because of the way that the guests presented themselves or what they wanted to talk about?
I think I've known something about all of the guests that have been on. So they're either people that I know or people that I've met. There obviously have been a lot of guests who've pitched themselves for the show who I've had to then go and research. And because I'm the one asking the questions, I don't think anything's gone too awry in terms of them taking something elsewhere. I think there's been a few kind of eyebrow-raising moments where, people have used quite colourful language or talked about things. I mean, there's one episode that sticks out. I know we're probably going to talk about some of the episodes, but the episode with Dan Kelsall sticks out. I mean, he's always colourful in terms of his language, but we ended up having a bit of a chat about getting screwed over by the same business owner. And there was a moment where I thought, I wonder if he will send us a legal letter. We didn't get one. But I think that was probably a close call potentially.
That could have been a highlight and a low light all at the same time.
100%, yeah.
So another kind of key aspect of Beyond the Bio all the way through has been the idea of not only listening but taking action and putting into practice the things that you talk about on the episodes. And obviously you've been here for all of them. You've covered loads of different topics, from public speaking to networking, social media use, press coverage. Have there been things that you've learnt whilst you've been presenting the show that you've then put into action yourself and seen benefits from?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's why I love trying to focus on taking some kind of action. So things, I guess, that stick out in mind, actually probably one of the early episodes with Jenny Smith talking about networking. She really knows her stuff around networking and she totally takes it up a notch. So there were definitely a few things there around how to follow up with people and think about different types of events to go to and stuff. So I remember coming away with loads of ideas after that episode. When I had Dan Priestley on the show talking about the podcast pyramid and the power of guesting on other people's shows, I actually went and drew an actual pyramid on a piece of paper and wrote a load of shows in that I wanted to go on and then pitch them. I think sometimes with the topics, because it's the stuff that we do day in, day out in Moja, it's sometimes just a reminder around doing things. So when we talk about having professional assets for speaking, things like speaker kits, it's a helpful reminder to just go back and go, is this still current? Is it still relevant? The other one, I guess, that stands out actually is when I had Athena Todd on talking about AI, and she was talking about how people use it in the wrong order for social media. So people use it to write their posts, and we've all seen those, haven't we? With the emojis and with all the sort of weird dashes and stuff. But her advice was around using ChatGPT to tidy up your posts after you've written them, and I really liked that. Really simple, common sense, I guess, but actually really valuable, because I have used that trick since to tidy up the post rather than write it, and I think it's a good one.
And that's an example of obviously something that has developed and is completely new, even to what you would have been able to do when you first made the show, because things are always adapting, aren't they?
Scary. We need to get her back.
So, on top of your developing ideas of how you can put into practice things that you've talked about on the podcast, do you think that presenting 100 episodes of Beyond the Bio has changed at all what you understand personal branding to be? How has that kind of developed?
So I've always had a bit of a thing about the term personal branding, and Ash Jones and I discussed that on a previous episode, how we both didn't like the term. And I think that the podcast has just reinforced that idea that personal branding is so much more than social media, because there's still a lot of people that will go, oh, personal branding, it's who I am online. And yes, it is, but that's a teeny tiny part of it. So for me, I always say that personal branding is actually all the quality and substance of what pops up on something like Google when someone pops your name into it. And actually social media, although it's super important, that's the end bit to amplify the message. So it's all about that substance, that quality. And I think having all these guests on over the last couple of years has just reinforced that, because we see, in these niche topics that we talk about most weeks, it's actually there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more to it, and it's the depth of each of those things. So you can't just, put on your LinkedIn bio that you're a speaker. Actually, what does that mean? What do you speak about? What do you stand for? How do you present? So we've had Danny Wallace on talking about how to present well and storytelling and things like that. So it's how do you actually do it? But then also how do you formalize that, professionalize that with the speaker kit, with the speaker reel, with the personal website, which we did a show on as well. So all of these things add up, and there's a lot to it if you do it properly.
And I'm sure the first thing you do if you get a pitch from somebody that you're not sure about who they are, you go off and Google them.
Of course you do.
So you need to make sure that they are somebody credible in that sense, because you'll go off and Google them. And if you haven't maybe put the work into the concept of it already, then perhaps you won't even get on the show.
Well, and on that point, I don't know whether this is one of your questions, but I do get a fair amount of pitches for the show, and maybe we should talk about actually what makes a great pitch, because we definitely want to get more guests for the show. And what I would say is a great pitch is someone that really personalizes it. Like we got a great pitch a couple of weeks ago from someone that I do know who did a video pitch. So did I think an email pitch, but also a video as well, and actually mocked up a picture of him on our artwork. Like, that's so quirky. No one's done that before. So that was very memorable, very cool. So I think we're in the process of booking him to come on the show. So that was super cool. And we'll talk about it when he comes on the show. Shout out to Kamal there. And that was awesome. So, but most weeks, the pictures that we are getting are either from PR people who haven't researched, so a lesson for us when we're pitching clients out for other shows, or people that are pitching themselves, which is totally fine. But we specifically ask a question now in our guest form about what's their favourite episode and why. And you can tell by that answer whether they've even listened to the show or not. And we also ask them what it is that they want to talk about. And a lot, I'd say like 7 or 8 pitches out of 10, we have people that pitch topics that are totally not a fit for the show. And I just think if you just listen to a couple of episodes, you would know that's not a fit. And sometimes if I know a bit about them or I like something in their pitch, I'll go back to them, or we'll go back to them and we'll say, you know, this isn't a fit, however we think maybe this would be. So sometimes we're doing a bit of that work for them, but actually just make it easy for yourself and do the research and listen to the show, because it's going to make it easier for you anyway when you're on it to be a great guest.
Amazing. And if anybody wants to mock up photos of themselves, it might save me a job making one. So that's absolutely fine by me.
There's a win. There's a win right there.
So again, reflecting back on the 100 episodes, there'll be loads of people who don't get anywhere near that number in terms of milestone. And you talked about the importance of consistency. Is that the main piece of advice you'd give to somebody else who's starting out on the podcast journey? And maybe what else would you suggest to them?
I think consistency is really important. And I think people need to go into podcasting with that level of awareness, because I'm sure there was some stat that I read that said to be in the top 1% of podcasters, you've just got to get past episode 6.
Wow.
And that seems very low when we're chatting on episode 100 here. But the thing is, it's like a podcast not just for Christmas, I often say to clients. And, you know, there is a lot of work that goes into it. And that's why it is great actually working with a company like ours who can do a lot of the legwork, who could do the prep, who can do the artwork, who can create the clips, all those things. But if you're doing it yourself, or even if you're literally just, you know, doing the hosting and someone else is doing all the other bits, you've still got to put the time in to do it. You've still got to either show up every week or however often it's on, or batch them, or however you do it. Still takes the same amount of time, and it is a huge commitment. So either have something in your head around seasons and be really clear around, right, okay, well, I'm going to have a season of 12 and I'm going to have it come out twice a year, or whatever that looks like. So it's got to be something that's manageable. And I think alongside that, I would be advising people to think carefully about how long the episodes are, because we often speak to clients that want to have these very long, sort of hour-long type episodes. And I think there's a trend that's moving away from those now, and you can actually be really super punchy in less than half an hour, and that's going to be more engaging these days. It's hard to start something from scratch and have these hours and hours long. You've got to be the big names, I think,
if you've got an hour's worth of content, you've maybe got 3 20-minute episodes, and then you're up and running and you're flying along. And if you don't have 3 20-minute episodes, maybe you don't have an hour's worth of content to start with.
Exactly. I totally agree. And I think another thing that I think is probably good advice is thinking about, well, I guess it depends what your goal is for having a podcast, right? So when we would talk, if we had a client here and we were talking to them about their podcast, we'd be asking them, like, what do you want to get from it? Is it a business development tool? Is it for your profile? Like, what is it for? Is it just general visibility? Because depending on the answers to those questions, I'd advise people differently. So for a lot of our clients, they want to have guests that they could potentially work with in the future in some way. Whereas for me, I'm doing it because I enjoy doing it. I want to learn. I want to practice what I preach, all those sorts of things. Yes, if I got a client from it, amazing, but that's not actually the primary goal with this. Therefore, that gives me a reasonable amount of flexibility, because I don't always have guests on the show. Sometimes I do solo episodes, and I think having that gives quite a bit of flexibility as well.
Do you find it more challenging doing a solo episode, or do you find that it gives you the opportunity to say what you want to say without fearing that you're kind of intruding into another person's episode?
Yeah, I think when I'm hosting, I like to listen to what the guests have got to say, and they are an expert in something, or they've got some experience that is really rich that I want to delve into. So I try to let them speak as much as possible. When it's a solo episode, clearly I'm just talking to myself, quite like that sometimes, not going to lie. It's quite nice just to have a bit of a rant. You've still got to plan out what you're going to say and what you're going to talk about, otherwise it's just rambling. So yeah, I like the mix. I like them both.
I think that's a good thing, is to have the mix. And some people maybe would be even more intimidated by the idea of doing a solo episode, but there's real value in that as well, because you can engage with the listenership. You don't have to be engaging with the person sat next to you in the room.
Yeah, and also, I remember when I had Teresa Heath-Waring on the show, and she was talking about her podcast, Your Dream Business, and she said that she did, I think, 20 episodes solo because she wanted to get those under her belt before she approached guests. And then when she approached guests, it was a brilliant episode. You should go back and listen to it if you missed it, because she talks about how she approached Pat Flynn and Amy Porterfield, who are both megastars in the US online space, and she flew over to America to take them for coffee with a view to them coming on her podcast. So she went from having no guests to having these American business superstars. And I thought that's actually really smart.
Yeah.
So different approaches.
And you've got that body of work ready and prepared to show somebody already without needing to...
I think so. And it developed her confidence around interviewing on the podcast. I mean, if you listen to her shows now, you think she's super confident. She's got a lovely voice. I love her podcast. But having that 20 episodes under her belt meant that when she was interviewing these superstars, she was really slick.
Do you often hear from people who have gone back and listened to an episode from a couple of years ago because it was particularly relevant to what they're doing at that moment?
Yeah, sometimes. And you can see it in the downloads as well, where maybe someone's mentioned it or in something that they've spoken at, or it's a relevant topic. You do see that a bit as
And do you ever go back and listen to them?
I do sometimes. Yeah. So I'm just thinking of one that I really enjoyed recording with Ollie Barrett, and it was about the power of panels, and he is the best panel host I've ever come across. I think he's so engaging and so well prepared, and I really wanted to unpick what that actually looks like in practice and how he does his research and how he's such a great host, because I always think the panels are usually the most boring bits of a conference and I think he makes them really fun. So yeah, things like that are helpful, where you've got real experts that really know their craft and you can learn from them, because sometimes you've got to listen to things a few times for it to sink in.
And I've got an episode as well, if you want to go back and listen to that one. Although I think I had a bit of a winter cold going on, so maybe I sounded a bit husky in that episode.
Snotty.
Hopefully I don't sound quite as snotty in this one. So looking ahead, maybe next 100 episodes, do you have a dream guest that you'd like to get on?
I do have a dream guest, and I think we should tag him in some sort of social post, because I think he's ignoring me, although maybe he thinks I'm some kind of stalker. So I was at Social Media Marketing World, which I went to, having had Andrew and Pete from Atomicon on this show, total legends, had them on the show, I don't know, last year sometime. And then they didn't try very hard to persuade me, because I was just like, yep, I'm there to go to Social Media Marketing World in San Diego. And while I was there, I saw some really great speakers. And the standout for me was a guy called Jay Schwadelson. I feel like, Jay, I should get points there for getting your name right, because I know it's hard to pronounce. He was really great speaker, so he was very, very engaging, very fast-paced, loads of data, loads of detail, and just knew his stuff. So I would describe him as like an expert in email marketing, newsletters, and he knows what works, and he's doing this research, or his company's doing this research, and I just found him super engaging. He has a podcast that I listen to all the time. It's really short. It's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, if that. Super short, but they come out a lot. But whenever I spot one, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to listen to that while I'm getting ready in the morning or something. So ideal timing. And because they're so short, again, they're really punchy. I always take away some kind of tip from them. He also has this thing about guilty pleasure type TV, like crap TV, which I quite like as well. So I just did Temptation Island in a weekend because I had a massive ironing pile. And so he talks about like what crap TV he's watching and what he thinks about it. So he's just very, very engaging. And I connected with him after seeing him speak and had a little bit of crack. And I have invited him onto this show, and I would love to go on his show, but he's just not returning my messages. So let's see if we can get him on, because he's brilliant.
If you're listening, Jay, you know what you got to do.
Yeah, I think he's great. I think a lot of value.
I can attest to this, because when Sophie came back from San Diego, she came into the office and she said, Max, you got to listen to this guy, because he's so cool.
He's
and
good. He's
really,
good.
really engaging
I've told a few
speaker.
people about him, and I've told a few people to listen to him, and I think Andrew and Pete should get him across for Atomicon. I think he'd go down a treat.
2026.
Yeah, I think he'd be good.
Brilliant. So, congratulations again. 100 episodes. because we've always got a take action at the end of every episode. What's going to be your take action, your shout out to the audience, to the listeners? What should their take action be for episode 100?
I would love to bring back previous take actions around showing some love for the show. Okay, so if you have stayed with us to episode 100, or maybe even if you're a new listener, then I would love it if you would rate, like, subscribe, all those things. And it really does make a difference because it makes it easier for other people to find the show. And as a host, it's really nice to see a lovely review. So I would really appreciate it if you could do that. And if you are new to the show, go back and take a listen to previous episodes. We title the episodes well so that you can see what they're going to be about and you can see whether it's something that will be of interest. So go back, have a binge, but please do rate, like, subscribe, all those things. And if you want to be on the show, then we have the guest form that you'll see in the show notes. So please submit your pitch. I've given you some great ideas there as to how to pitch well, so it should be very easy. And the other thing I would love actually is if you're enjoying the show, drop me a message on whatever platform you like and let me know that you like the show, because that would be awesome. But also, who do you want me to get onto the show? Like, who would be a great guest? Who do you think I need to speak to? Or what kind of topics are you particularly interested in hearing more about? That would be super helpful. It will help me with my planning for the next 100 episodes. So I would love that.
It's amazing to hear so many more ideas for the next 100 episodes, but congratulations on this 100.
Thanks.
Happy birthday, if we can say that.
100.
Happy anniversary. And I'll throw to you for the outro.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, it would be mint if you could like, subscribe, and leave a review on your favourite platform. See you next week.